So let's get started, beginning with the brutal murder of Shona Stevens in Irvine, Scotland, 27 years ago. Around lunchtime on the 10th of November 1994, Shona Stevens was brutally murdered on her way home through Bawtry Hill Park in Irvine. She was found badly beaten just 200 yards from her front door. She never regained consciousness and died 3 days later. 27 years on, Shona's killer still hasn't been found. 31-year-old Shona was mum to 7-year-old Candice. They'd recently moved back from South Africa to live with Shona's mum. Described as a caring mother, Shona was well liked. Shona's brutal death sent shockwaves through the community. Strathclyde police immediately launched a murder investigation, codenamed Operation Short. And in February of 1995, Crimewatch aired an appeal for information led by DCI Bob Lauder.
We want to get information from anyone who was in that park. We need to speak to everyone who was there, and these people are vital witnesses to us. The community really must help us and come forward and tell us everything they know about that morning in that park.
The appeal showed that Shona had left home around 12:45. She went to the Co-op at Bawtry Hill Shopping Centre before heading home. At 1:10, she was seen walking alone on Towerlands Road, and that was the last sighting of Shona. But despite a huge police inquiry and the appeal generating several leads, Shona's killer was never found. Now Operation Short is being re-examined. Detective Inspector Fraser Normansell has painstakingly looked at every piece of evidence and more than 2,000 witness statements to see if any clues were missed.
Investigating a case like this involves a huge amount of material. I have to determine where all these items are, what is the significance of each of these items, and are there modern techniques that could help and identify the perpetrator. Something that might have seemed insignificant 27 years ago could be hugely significant for us now, so I'm particularly interested in the actual crime scene.
Bawtry Hill Park is mostly unchanged since the day Shona died.
Near lunchtime, Shona made her way from the Co-op through the park back towards her home address. She got within 150 yards or so where she was the victim of a sustained and brutal attack. There's a slight bend in the pathway, and there was an area of blood on the path, and Shona was found a few metres into the undergrowth on the left-hand side.
At the time, the murder site was combed for evidence.
The material that I'm looking through includes photographs that were obtained at the time, videos of the scene, the results from the fingertip search of the area, the examination that was carried out by our forensic scientists, and items that could have been potentially left behind by the perpetrator.
One unusual item stood out.
During the initial crime scene examination, we found a novelty keyring that maybe wasn't significant for the original investigation, however now becomes much more significant to us. We believe there's a chance it could have been left behind by the perpetrator. A member of the public has actually sent us an identical keyring to assist with our investigation, and I'm hoping that someone in the local community can remember that somebody may have had this particular keyring attached to their keys. Any information that relates to this keyring could prove pivotal to my investigation.
Could this be the key to solving Shona's murder?
Despite it being 27 years since Shona's murder, it's still having a devastating effect on our family. Our mother and daughter still feel the pain as if it was 1994. No offender has ever been brought to justice for her murder, and it still hangs over the community. These cases can flip on the smallest of details, and I'm determined to bring the offender to justice.
So, do you recognise it? To find out more about the keyring and the case, I'm joined via video call by the investigating officer who we saw in the film there, is DI Fraser Normansell. Fraser, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about that day that Shona was attacked?
We know Shona left her home that lunchtime around 12:45 to attend at the local shops in the village centre in Butcher Hill. She walked through the park and attended at the Co-op store. She was then last seen on Towerlands Road about 1:10, heading back towards the park to her home address.
You mentioned there the park, Bawtry Hill Park. Can you just describe what type of area that is?
The park is a popular place for the local community for recreation and dog walking. I'm appealing for anybody who was in the park on that day who may have seen anything at all, who remembers, to get in touch with the investigation.
It could be crucial. Now, please do tell us more about that intriguing keyring. We saw it in the film there. Tell us about where you found that.
Sure, this keyring was found during the initial examination of the scene. It stood out as being unusual. It's been difficult to find another. We did manage to track one down in Sweden. And I'm appealing to anyone who remembers this keyring from around 1994 in Irvine, and anyone who could link this keyring to the Irvine area or to Shona Stevens herself.
We can just see an image of the one that you identified in Sweden and how it may have looked like. Now, it is very distinctive. Someone may well have recognised a person having such a keyring back then, and it could be crucial information to you in the investigation if they did.
Absolutely, Rav. There's a real potential it could have been left behind by the perpetrator of the crime.
Tell us, how has Shona's death impacted on her family?
Shona's family deserve to understand why Shona was murdered and who is the person responsible for that, and for that person to face justice. The passage of time has not eased their pain at all.
I can imagine. Now, if anyone did need further incentive to come forward with information that they're holding, there is a reward that's been put up for information, isn't there?
Yes, Crime Stoppers charity are supporting the investigation by providing a £10,000 reward for any person who provides information to the charity that could lead to the identification, arrest and conviction of the person responsible. This information can be provided anonymously to the charity.
Fraser, thank you. If you can help solve this 27-year-old mystery, we really need to hear from you. Shona's family deserve to know what happened. If you've seen this keyring before, then please get in touch now. You can contact the incident room direct on 01563 505 187, or you can visit the Police Scotland website and submit information via the Major Incident Public Portal. And of course, you can also report information to Crime Stoppers. I'll give you their number, 0800 555 111.
You can help with our first appeal. 30 years ago, Warrington mum Vera Anderson dropped her 7-year-old son out of her neighbours and went out. Hours later, she was found murdered.
She was a lovely woman. She was very generous and kind-hearted. I couldn't understand why anyone would want to hurt her.
In the early hours of Sunday, the 25th of August 1991, Vera Anderson was found murdered. Her body was discovered in her car in the Penketh area of Warrington. Cheshire Constabulary launched a massive investigation, turning to Crimewatch for help.
Well, now to our final reconstruction. Did you know Vera Anderson? Vera had many friends, but certainly no enemies as far as anyone knows.
The main focus in the investigation was to try and establish Vera Anderson's movements once she'd left her home address.
The Crimewatch reconstruction showed the places Vera may have visited.
There was some information, a possible sighting of her at the Crown and Cushion pub, and there was a whole load of enquiries done around the Crown and Cushion and a possible sighting of Vera Anderson with a man in the pub on that evening. Unfortunately, as a result of extensive enquiries, the identity of that male came to nothing.
30 years later, the identity of Vera's killer remains a mystery. Now retired, former Detective Sergeant Gary Massey has returned to the case as a civilian investigator.
My interest in this case has built over the 7 or 8 years that I have been reviewing it. and I have invested a lot of time in trying to identify who was responsible and bring justice for the family of Vera Anderson.
Vera's whereabouts the day she was killed are still unknown.
Vera Anderson received a phone call sometime before 10 p.m. on Saturday, the 24th of August, 1991. Following that phone call, it prompted her to leave her home address. She left her young son with a next-door neighbour.
Will you have Neil for 10 minutes?
Emptied the contents of the boot of her car, which was a blue Ford Cortina, and drove away from her home address. At 3:15 the following morning, Vera Anderson's body was found in a car at an old disused tannery site in the Penketh area of Warrington.
Requesting supervision. Found her body in a vehicle.
30 years ago, the site where Vera's body was found looked much different than it does today.
In 1991, to my right, was an enormous industrial tannery complex. That's now been demolished and a housing estate exists.
Vera's daughter, Lorraine, was 19 at the time and still vividly remembers the day she lost her mum.
Got woken up on the Sunday morning by two CIDs standing at the door. It was very difficult. I just felt so alone, to be honest. And I thought, what am I going to do? But I just got on with it. No choice. I was more upset about my brother really losing my mum because he was only 7, and he idolised my mother. We had to sit him down and tell him that his mummy was never coming back, and that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Lorraine still lives in the area and now has a family of her own.
It's still very difficult, obviously, because the killer hasn't been caught. It's just really not got any easier. I've learnt to live with it now, but I haven't forgot about it in any way.
Gary believes there's still hope of finding the killer, and one lead in particular has kept his attention.
A member of the public who resided to the rear of the site believes he saw Vera Anderson's car on the tannery site around about 11 p.m. At approximately 11:15 p.m. on the night of Vera Anderson's murder, a witness was travelling along Tannery Lane when a car emerged from the service road where Vera Anderson's body was later found. The car is described as a brown hatchback-type vehicle.
Police still want to trace the driver of the brown car. And for Lorraine and her family, getting answers are as important now as they ever were.
It's a long time to hold on to something for so long. I just don't understand how anyone could do such a thing. It's never going to be forgotten. I'm still going to have it on my mind, and until the killer's caught, I don't think I'm going to be able to rest. I feel like it's me living the life sentence.
A tragic case that left 2 children without a mum. Absolutely heartbreaking. Well, joining us now by video call is Detective Inspector Adam Waller, who's investigating Vera's murder. Good morning, Adam. First of all, could you talk us through what happened to Vera in August 1991?
Good morning, thank you. All murders are tragic, but this one was particularly inexplicably brutal. It's left a lasting memory for many officers, both retired and still serving within Cheshire Constabulary. We know that Vera left her home address in Widnes, which is not far from Warrington, just after 10 p.m. on Saturday, the 24th of August, 1991, having asked her neighbour to mind her son Neil, who was just 7 years old at the time. It's believed that Vera only intended to be out for about 10 minutes, and it was extremely out of character for her not to come home as she promised. There were no further confirmed sightings of Vera after she drove out of her estate until her body was found in her car at around 3:15 a.m. the following morning at this disused tannery building site, which is just off Tannery Lane in Penketh back in the day. Vera had suffered devastating neck injuries and had died at the scene.
It's really terrible. Adam, tell us a bit about what Vera was like, and can you think of any reason at all why somebody would want to hurt her?
It's really apparent from the huge amount of inquiries conducted with Vera's family and friends that she was a popular, likeable and family-orientated lady. She was very sociable, extremely close to her family, and her two children meant the world to her. And despite extensive inquiries into Vera's background, the victimology as we call it, the motive for her killing remains unclear. And this must be hugely upsetting for her family, as there's just no sense as to what's happened to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the crime scene looks very different today, doesn't it? We've got a map of how it looked then versus how it looks now. And you're asking people to cast their memories back, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm really keen to speak to anyone that may have been passing the scene at Tannery Lane, particularly those that have never been spoken to by the police back in the early 90s, or perhaps has remembered something they didn't previously mention. We know that there were many people at the nearby Ferry Tavern pub just down the road from the scene that may have driven or walked past the scene. And similarly, we know there were lots of people at the Fiddler's Ferry Social Club, which is nearby also. So anyone, staff or customers alike, that have never been spoken to by an investigation may have crucial information, and I'd be really keen for them to get in touch with my team.
Tell us a bit more about Vera's movements on the night that she was killed.
Well, we've got some big gaps, as you've seen. We know that Vera drove out of her estate just after 10 p.m, 10 past 10, thereabouts, but it's not clear where she was between then and when her body was found at 3:15 a.m, some 5 hours later. It's possible that her car arrived at the scene between 10:45 and 11 p.m, as there was a vehicle seen in exactly the same position at around 11 p.m.
Adam, we can see Vera's car on the screen now. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I can't rule out that vehicle at 11 p.m. was Vera's vehicle, or was it something similar? But it certainly looked similar. And there was also a potential sighting of Vera in the nearby Crown and Cushion pub in Penketh at around 10:30 p.m. And that sighting was with an unidentified man. Again, it's important to stress that wasn't a confirmed sighting, albeit the description was very similar in terms of clothing and physical appearance of Vera.
But there is a new lead, isn't there, that you're really interested in?
Yeah, from the videos you've seen and from a detailed review of investigative material, a number of witnesses have been re-interviewed, and it appears that there's been a sighting of a brown hatchback car in the vicinity of the scene just after 11 p.m. on the 24th of August. It was leaving the service road, as we've described. We don't know the exact make and model of that car, but from the descriptions that have been offered, we think it's something similar to a Mark I Vauxhall Astra, a Mitsubishi Colt, Talbot Horizon, or a Datsun Cherry, that sort of size and shape of vehicle in brown. We've never managed to trace the vehicle of that driver. So again, anyone that can offer any information around people that had that sort of vehicle that they may have had some suspicion about, but just have never put the piece of the jigsaw in, then again, my team would be really keen to speak to them.
And finally, we heard from Vera's daughter Lorraine in the film there. She feels like she's been living a life sentence. What do you think it would mean, Adam, to the family to finally find out who killed Vera?
I can't emphasise enough how brutal this murder was. For 30 years, Vera's children have suffered the angst of not knowing why their mum was killed or by whom. A young son was left without a mother. Vera's missed out on seeing her grandchildren grow up, birthdays, Christmases, marriages, etc. And I know there isn't a day that goes by where Vera's daughter Lorraine doesn't think about her mum. They're desperate for closure, justice, and the answer to many unanswered questions. So we're extremely keen for anyone that has any information to get in touch. I'm convinced that there's someone out there that knows the identity of the killer, and it's unlikely that killer hasn't told anyone about it. Someone may have harboured this secret for 30 years. They may have felt unable to tell the police about what they know and who, and I'd urge them to get in touch in order to help Vera's family be put out of their misery.
Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us this morning. So, were you in Penketh in Warrington in 1991, and did you or someone else you know drive a brown hatchback car? Vera's family have been waiting for justice for 30 long years. They need to know what happened and why. So if you can help, please do pick up the phone right now and give them the answers that they deserve. But now, 21 years ago today, Vicky Glass went missing in Middlesbrough and sadly was found dead a few months later. To date, no one has been charged with her murder and her family have been trying all this time to find out what happened to her. Vicky's sisters, Claire and Cheryl, join me now. Thank you to both of you for coming in today. I appreciate this is a difficult thing to do, so we really appreciate it. First of all, I just wanted to ask you what Vicky was like. How was she as a sister?
She was lovely, wasn't she? She was, you know, fun-loving. She loved the band. She was in the band for a long time. She liked going out.
Very quiet until you got to know her, and then she'd start to come out of her shell.
And you were close, weren't you?
Yeah, age-wise we were all close, so we were all brought up together in a nice unit. Yeah, she was lovely.
And sadly, when she was 18, things took a bit of a turn, didn't they, unfortunately, for the worse. Can you just explain what was going on at that time with Vicky?
I think she met some people, she was vulnerable, she got led down a path and we tried and we just couldn't bring her back. Yeah, very quiet and vulnerable.
What was that period of time like between Vicky's disappearance and then actually finding out that she wouldn't be coming home?
It was the not knowing of where she was. We just thought that maybe she'd gone to her friend's house and she'd come home. She just didn't.
We just thought she'd turn up. We didn't expect any of this to happen. Nobody expected it, so...
And you mentioned that it's been 21 years, you know, over 2 decades you've been waiting for answers. What has that period of time been like for you and your family?
Absolutely devastating. Devastating.
Yeah, our mum passed away 6 years ago, so not even getting any answers.
She never got any peace.
No peace, yeah. And when this did happen to Vicky, so when Vicky died, a piece of mum died with her, and she was never the same again. And to have that hanging over a family is, yeah, nobody should have to go through that.
What would you say to anybody watching today who might be able to provide some answers?
Please come forward.
Yeah.
You can do it anonymously. We just need answers.
Yeah.
People change, just, yeah, come forward. We need to know what happened and we need justice for Vicky.
Absolutely. Cheryl, Claire, thank you so much again for coming in this morning. We really hope we can find some answers for Vicky's family. And to find out more about the investigation, I'm joined by Detective Chief Inspector Pete Carr from Cleveland Police's Historic Investigation Unit. Pete, what can you tell us about the days leading up to Vicky's murder?
Yeah, so at the time of Vicky's disappearance and murder, she was living in Middlesbrough at the time. She was associating a lot in the Cannon Park area of Middlesbrough. And what we do know is that in the build-up to her disappearance, she was engaging with friends, she was socialising, and she was fit, well, and no reported issues. A friend of hers reported her missing on the 27th of September, and sadly her body was found on the 3rd of November in the Danby area, which is about 19 miles away from Middlesbrough in North Yorkshire.
And when was she last seen?
Yeah, so this is probably a key point for us. While she was reported missing on the 27th and found on the 3rd of November, we believe that the last sighting of her was on the 24th of September, which was a Sunday. It was the early hours of Sunday, about 4:15 in the morning. Vicky got a taxi from Stockton in Teesside across to Middlesbrough, and she was dropped off at this area here, which is Union Street, junction with Eschwood Square. She was last sighted there, got out of the taxi. She was fit and well when she got out of the taxi. We do know she was looking to purchase drugs at the time, but she did not have any money with her. We strongly believe that in the hours or possibly the moments after that, Vicky probably bumped into her killer.
And just remind us again, Pete, when this went from a disappearance to a murder investigation. Yeah,
so naturally when a body was found on the 3rd of November over in Danby, a murder investigation was commenced. A quite substantial amount of inquiries were conducted back in 2000. We've reviewed that, and now we feel that there's further lines of inquiry that we can now pursue. This is very much a live and proactive investigation.
So people are going to be watching at home this morning. What information would you like them to come forward with that would help this investigation?
Yeah, granted it's 21 years ago, but we want people to come forward with information. If people know anything about what happened to Vicky, especially when she stepped out of that taxi onto Union Street, then please get in touch with us. I strongly believe that the person responsible for a murder will have confided in someone, a friend, a relative. We appeal for that person to come forward.
And a lot of time has passed, hasn't it? You know, we said 21 years, allegiances may have changed. People that didn't feel confident coming forward at the start may feel differently now. And they can speak to you anonymously, can't they?
Yeah, that's quite right. They can speak to us anonymously. As we said, 21 years has passed. People's allegiances change. We would appeal for anybody to come forward and speak to us about what they know about Vicky and who was responsible for a murder. We are absolutely determined to get justice for Vicky and for her family.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. Thank you very much.
It's a distressing case. In 1999, car dealer Patrick Logan was just weeks away from getting married when masked men broke into his house, armed with a gun.
Patrick was 40 years old at the time of his death. He'd been born in Northern Ireland, but he and his family moved to the Manchester area when he was a teenager. He was a car dealer. He was very well known in the local area. He was a regular at many pubs. He was a very popular figure. He lived with his partner, who he was engaged to marry, and her teenage son.
On the 27th of July 1999, Patrick Logan and his fiancée Susan attended a party with some friends. At around 11:30 p.m, they left the party and returned home to their house at Cuddington Avenue.
They drove home in their camper van. They parked the van directly outside their house and they went inside. It was a normal evening. There was certainly nothing that would indicate what was about to happen.
While the couple slept, in the early hours of the morning, two men approached their home. Finding their way through a back window, they entered the house.
Approximately 3:45 in the morning, Patrick was awoken by a noise. He went out onto the landing and looked down the stairs, came back into the bedroom and said something to Susan about being broken into, and he picked up the phone and he dialed 999.
Emergency, which service? It's police, please. Police, thank you. Go ahead, caller, what's the problem?
Yeah, it's, I've just been woke up. There's been people down the stairs that just run out. I don't know what's going on.
While Patrick spoke to the police, a man walked up the stairs and entered the bedroom.
Out of your property.
The intruder produced a pistol and shot at Patrick 5 times, hitting him twice in the chest. As Patrick lay dying, the gunman and his accomplice fled.
We believe that this was a premeditated attack. This was not a burglary, nothing was stolen. The fact is that the offenders went to the address with a firearm, and we believe that they fully intended to kill Patrick Logan that night.
Patrick had suffered catastrophic injuries. He was transported to Withington Hospital, where he died shortly after arrival.
It's hard to describe the impact that the shooting has had on his partner. To have a loved one gunned down in front of you was devastating for her and also for her son. No child should ever have to witness something like that. The Greater Manchester Police never close a murder investigation. We know that there are people out there who know who committed this murder. We know that allegiances change over time, and we hope that somebody feels able to tell us now who committed this murder so that we can bring them to justice and give peace to Patrick's family.
A terrifying and violent attack. And I'm now joined by the head of Greater Manchester Police's Cold Case Unit, Senior Investigating Officer Martin Bottomley, via video call. Martin, many thanks for joining us today. A truly shocking murder. What can you tell us about the events that night that led to Patrick's murder?
Yes, it was late July 1999. Patrick had been to a party with his fiancée, Susan. We were both in a good mood. He got home, went to bed about midnight, and then about 3:45 in the morning, two men broke into the house, and you've seen in the film what happened next.
It was absolutely dreadful. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to show a map of this area, and I'd like you just to talk us through where this actually occurred, because we want as many potential witnesses as possible to come forward here.
Yes, this is Cuddington Avenue in Withington, which is just south of Manchester city centre. And you can see the incident there where Patrick was shot. That's the corner house. When the men had broken into and shot Patrick, they then ran up towards the alleyway where they made good their escape in a silver Vauxhall Vectra.
OK. Have you any idea why Patrick was targeted in this way?
Well, Patrick was well known locally, but it's probably fair to say that he had an involvement in some dodgy business dealings. And particularly, we think there's a link to Belfast. And it's my belief that he had a fallout with associates in Belfast. The call was made from there, and the hit was called in on him, and he was executed in his own home in the early hours of the morning.
What do you know about the gunman and any accomplices that were involved?
Well, there were two masked men involved. One drove the getaway car, one broke into the house. But a witness heard, crucially, the name Kieran being exchanged between the two men. So there's a very strong possibility that one of the killers is called Kieran.
That's very, very useful information there. Also, a witness did report about the suspects leaving in a particular type of car. Tell us about that.
Yes, we believe they escaped in a silver Vauxhall Vectra, a 5-door saloon car, like the one on screen now. It had a spoiler on the back, just like that, and a brake light, which was either on the spoiler itself or high up on the windscreen, an extra brake light on the car there.
Yeah, we just see an image of a similar car there on the screen. Now, the suspects also left behind some other clues, didn't they?
Yes, there is some forensic evidence. There's some fingerprints that we haven't identified. And crucially, there's a footwear impression of a Nike Air More Up-Tempo training shoe. Now, that was left on the kitchen floor and on the kitchen worktop, and that would be a size 8 or 9 Nike Air shoe.
And we're just seeing an image of a similar shoe on the screen there, if anyone recognises that. And I have to ask, what would this mean, even after all this time, what would this mean to Patrick's family to get some answers about just what happened that night?
Well, it's been 22 years now since Patrick died. His mum is still alive. He's obviously got other family still, and it would mean so much for the truth to come out, for some reconciliation in their minds, and for justice to be done by Patrick's killers being brought to justice.
And I have to say, if anyone needed an extra incentive, there is a financial reward as well, a huge one.
Yes, Greater Manchester Police will pay £50,000 for information which leads to the arrest and conviction of the killers of Patrick that night. OK,
Martin, thank you. Well, you've heard it. If you did need that extra incentive, that is a huge amount of money. So, do you know someone who was wearing trainers similar to these back in 1999, or perhaps was driving a silver saloon with that distinctive spoiler, as you've just heard there? Remember, these men shot a man in his bed in front of his family, and they've been waiting 22 years to find out why.
JP. Now, March this year marked 25 years since hairdresser Russell Muraw was found murdered next to the A10 in Milton in Cambridgeshire. A quarter of a century on, his family is still waiting to find out the truth of what happened. And today, the review team at Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire and Cambridgeshire major crime units are asking for help, in particular from those within the LGBTQ+ community, to come forward and help identify his killers. Mick Flavin is leading the review and joins us in the studio today. Good morning, Mick.
Good morning.
So could you tell us a bit more about what happened to Russell?
Yes, of course. Russell was a 29-year-old man who lived in the Hunstanton area. He had a business, a hairdressing salon in nearby Heacham. He was an openly gay male who would often frequent the Jesus Green and Dot Cotton nightclub. Both Jesus Green and the nightclub are in Cambridge city centre. We know that he left home in Hunstanton on Saturday the 30th of March 1996. At that time he was driving his dark coloured Fiat Uno car. We know that he was intending to go to Jesus Green and potentially to the Dot Cotton Club. He stopped on the way at a garage in Milton. At that time, the garage was trading under the brand Q8. It now is a BP service station. He would often do that. He was known within there. And that's the last known sighting of Russell alive at around midnight on Saturday the 30th of March, until his body was found at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday the 31st of March, the following evening.
Now, there's also some suggestion that he may have walked from the Milton area into Cambridge, is that right?
Yes, having left the service station, there is a suggestion that it was his intention to walk. Now, if that was the case, you know, Milton into Cambridge city centre is 6 miles. It was an extremely cold evening. The A10 would be his only route into Cambridge city centre. It's a main arterial road, it's unlit, there is no footpath. So anyone who was driving down the A10 that evening would probably have seen a pedestrian walking along there and thought it was unusual. And equally, did anyone see his car?
Yeah, we can show an image of the car again now, Mick. So yeah, talk us through this.
Yeah, it's a 4-door dark-coloured Fiat Uno car. So again, if anyone saw that on the A10, we'd be really keen to know.
So you're also appealing to Russell's own community as well, aren't you? If they have any information that they could come forward with.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you know, this is 25 years ago, and although the investigation was thorough at the time, it's been reviewed on many occasions, but it's not lost on me that actually relationships between the LGBTQ plus community and the police 25 years ago hopefully are very different to that of the relationships today. We have specially trained LGBTQ plus liaison officers, for example. So the appeal is, if anyone for any reason felt uncomfortable with coming forward to the police back in the day, and that's just been compounded over the period of time that's since passed, please put that to one side. We'd be very pleased to take a call.
And people can speak to you in confidence, can't they, Mick?
Yes, they can speak anonymously. They can, you know, if they want a specialist trained officer to call them back, that's fine. I or one of my team would be happy to take any information at all.
And what would it mean to Russell's family? They've been waiting so long for answers, any information at all. What would it mean to them to really find out what happened?
Yeah, look, absolutely. No cold case is ever closed, and these are always subject to review. We owe it to Russell's memory and to his family to try and bring them some closure.
So, as you said, any information that anybody can think about, even though it was a long time ago, you're urging them to come forward.
Absolutely. No matter how insignificant they may think it is, it might be able to give us the piece of information to fill in the gap for this missing 19 and a half hours. You know, did he actually make it to Jesus Green? Did he make it to the Dot Cotton Club? Why was he back in Milton? It's that gap, really, that we need to fill.
Mick, thank you so much. So, do you know what happened that night? Russell's family, as we say, have been waiting for a quarter of a century to find out. So if you have information, please do pick up that phone now. Now, a decade ago, on the 11th of May 2011, 27-year-old Scott Fletcher from Hartlepool went missing and has never been found. In 2015, Cleveland police made the decision to treat Scott's disappearance as murder, but his family is still no closer to finding out what's happened to him. I'm joined this morning by Scott's mum, Julie. Julie, thank you so much for coming in to speak to us. First of all, can I ask you what Scott was like?
Well, Scott was the baby of the family, but he was a big, lively lad. He was mischievous. He was full of fun. He had a big heart to go with it. He loved his family. He was very family-orientated. He loved his children and his nieces, spent a great deal of time with them all. So it's a huge miss that he's gone now. He was very generous, very kind.
And as he said, really close to his family. You know, we saw a picture of his daughter Lucy there, and she wants to know what's happened to her father as well, doesn't she? But Julie, growing up, it wasn't all smooth sailing for Scott, was it?
No, Scott kept us on our toes. Nothing nasty or serious, but he was always in some scrape or other. But he'd settled down once he had Lucy. And we thought, oh, this is lovely, you know. And things were going along really well. So we were really, really shocked to find out, you know, what had potentially happened to him and who he was mixing with. It's not the type of people he would normally mix with. So it came as a huge shock.
When did you and the family realise that Scott wasn't coming home?
Well, it's so hard. I mean, you know, your child goes out on a morning, you don't expect that's the last time you ever see them. And I was at work that day, and I didn't come in till about 8:30 in the evening. And my husband was extremely worried and upset. He said, I can't get hold of Scott. Now, Scott used to phone us constantly. Even on holiday, we were a very close family, and we always do phone each other. And he'd phoned Scott repeatedly and couldn't get hold of him. So he was quite anxious. So I spent my time trying to calm my husband down, and then spent all night trying to phone Scott on his phone, to no avail. There was no answers.
Just so hard and so distressing. And as we said, this is 10 years on now, but this is something that's clearly still affecting you and your family.
We live with the stress and anxiety every single day. Scott's in our thoughts, in our minds. We talk about him every day as if he's here. His dad is very poorly, and the doctors have attributed his poor health to the loss of Scott. Scott was our only boy. Lucy's had to have lots of counselling to help her deal with the fact that her dad has gone. It's the fact that we don't know what's happened to him. It's the fact that we don't have anywhere to go and grieve for him. We're just in limbo. We're just left in limbo.
Julie, thank you so much. We really do appreciate you coming in and talking to us this morning. Now, I'm also joined by Detective Superintendent Philip Bond. Philip is in charge of the case. Good morning, Philip.
Morning.
What can you tell us about Scott's disappearance from May 2011?
So, as a police force, we initially dealt with this as a missing from home inquiry. However, in 2015, very good information came to our attention, and it's now firmly a murder investigation. Scott was involved in criminality, he made some poor choices, and he had debts linked to that. But he didn't deserve to die, and you've heard from Julie a heartfelt appeal to find out what has happened to Scott and who his killers are. It's very important that we find the body and we help the family lay Scott to rest. Scott didn't deserve to die, and what I will say is there are people out there, criminals who know what happened to Scott. And I'm asking 10 years on that they search deep into their soul and come forward and help. With the passage of time, criminals will break allegiances, families break down, and of course friends change. And I'm asking direct to those people to come forward and help us solve this investigation.
Why did you take the decision to treat this as a murder investigation?
Well, we've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, and of course the information that we now have and have had for some time is telling us firmly that it is a murder investigation. I'm satisfied that that's the case.
Philip, talk us through Scott's last known movements.
Well, we do know that Scott was last alive around the A181 in Wheatley Hill in the County Durham area, and of course he lived near to the West Drayton area, and that is where we have credible information to suggest he was still alive.
Yeah, we can see on the map there, he was last seen alive close to the jet garage on the A181 at Wheatley Hill. And you're interested in anyone who might have seen him there, or the West Rainton village, which we can see on the map as well, he was last known to live.
That's right, and as I say, I'll repeat that again. I want people to come forward, I want criminals to come forward, and people linked to those criminals to help us solve this investigation.
Now, finally, there is a reward on offer, isn't there?
That's right, Crime Stoppers do have an award, and what I would say is come forward, speak to the police. We have all sorts of different ways we can handle people who want to talk to us, and we'll do so in the absolute strictest of confidence, and we'll manage that information very well. Please don't be afraid to come forward and help us with this.
Philip, thanks very much. That is a huge amount of money. And Julie, if I can just come to you again for one last question. For anybody who might be watching this morning, what would you like to say to them?
Please, if you've got any information whatsoever, please pass that information on. We've lived for 10 years with this anxiety and stress now. We need to bring Scott home. We can't say goodbye to him like you would normally if you had a funeral. We can't see his face, we can't touch him, can't hold him, but we can, if we can find him, bring him home to rest in peace with his family, and he deserves that.
Julie, thank you so much. This family deserve to know what happened. So if you can help, do the right thing, pick up the phone. The details of how to get in touch are on the screen now.
Of today's cases. First, police are appealing for information on a case we first featured in 2019. The tragic murder of football-mad 18-year-old Sami Sidhom in Forest Gate, London.
Sami was a brilliant young man. He was very kind. He always liked to help his family, his friends. We were more than just a father and a son. We were very close, and he was my best friend as well.
"18-year-old Sami Sidhom grew up in Forest Gate, East London, with single dad, Samir. He was an ambitious and popular young man who had recently started a law and history degree course at Queen Mary University of London.
Sami got interested in law when he was about 12. He said because he is good at arguing, and he wanted to help other people as well. When he was young, we used to go to the park just at the end of the road where he would cycle and we'd play football. He became a West Ham supporter. He was a season ticket holder, and he used to go to all the West Ham games. He was just a brilliant young man. All you would want for your son.
On an April evening in 2018, Sami had been to watch West Ham play Stoke City at the London Stadium. West Ham had grabbed a last-minute draw, and Sami would have been in good spirits. Sami took a bus home with a friend, getting off alone at Romford Road, at the junction with Woodgrange Road, just half a mile away from his home. But when he got to the end of his road, he decided to take the long way round. Police believe Sami may have seen a fight in Avenue Road between two rival gangs, one in a black Mini and the other in a silver car.
He would have tried to avoid any situation that might have put him in danger.
But when Sami reached the top of his road, a silver car thought to be part of the gang confrontation was making its getaway. Witnesses saw three men jump out of the small silver car and chase Sami down Chestnut Avenue. He was just yards from home, but Sami was unable to escape.
I was just waiting for him, and suddenly I just see through the window the blue lights flashing. I could see paramedics trying to resuscitate someone. I felt something might have happened, so I just walked out through the door, just 10 meters away from home. I looked at the person who they were trying to resuscitate, and it was Sami.
Sami had been stabbed in the back multiple times. He died 45 minutes later, with his father by his side. Police believe Sami had unwittingly stumbled into the middle of a gang conflict. His death, a tragic case of mistaken identity.
This was a truly horrific, unprovoked attack. I'm urging members of the public and wider community to come forward and provide police with information to help us solve this case. It's been 3 years since Sami's murder. His friends, his family deserve closure as they are living through this hell on a daily basis.
For Sami's father, the memory of that awful night is painfully fresh.
It still feels as if it's happened yesterday. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't miss him. My life has ended. He was my only son, and it's very difficult to move on knowing that the people who did this to Sami, they are still free and they could do this thing to some other family. He didn't deserve for his life to be taken away. It was taken away for nothing. So please come forward.
It's every parent's worst nightmare, and DCI Mark Rogers, who's recently taken on the case, joins me now via video call. Mark, thank you for joining us today. This is a case of mistaken identity, Sami just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tell us what happened.
Yes, that's correct, Brad. We believe this is a case of mistaken identity. Sami was a straight-A student. He avoided trouble at all costs, and this is what he was trying to do on the night when he was murdered. He came across 2 rival gangs who were having an altercation, and we believe one of these gangs brutally murdered Sami.
So what do we know about his killers?
Witnesses have reported seeing a number of males. We're appealing for witnesses to come forward. If you're in the Chestnut Avenue or Avenue Road or Forest Gate on the night of the murder, please get in touch.
We can just see on the map there the area you are talking about. Now, there were a number of individuals that we believe were involved in some kind of altercation, and you believe that Sami may well have witnessed that. We saw that from the film.
Yes, you're correct. This is a line of investigation we're very interested in. Men fitting the description of Sami's killers were seen in a number of cars having an altercation. They were in a silver car, a dark grey BMW and a black Mini. Sami's usual route home from the stadium would have passed these cars. We believe Sami took a longer route around from the cars to avoid any trouble or conflict on this night when he was murdered.
OK, and we've actually got some CCTV here. We can see a clip which we believe involves that silver car that you just mentioned. Can you talk us through what we're seeing here, Mark?
Yes, this is a small silver car that was seen on the night of the murder, and this was seen leaving the scene of Sami's murder. And I'm appealing for information about who was driving that car on the night of the offence, or anyone who has any information about that car to come forward, please.
Yeah, it could be absolutely crucial information. Now, on the film there, we heard from Sami's dad, and it was heartbreaking. He described Sami as not just his son, but his best friend. How is his dad and the family now, 3 years on from this tragic event?
Sami's murder has devastated his father, and you can see there he's heartbroken. He's lost his only son, and no man should go through that. The rest of the family are absolutely devastated, and not seeing Sami's killers brought to justice is just making things even harder. The family deserves some closure, Rav.
Yeah, they certainly do. Now, there is one person in particular that you are appealing to direct today. Tell us about that.
Yes, every time we make an appeal, an anonymous caller comes forward. And we really believe this anonymous caller has some vital information that will help us identify who Sami's killers are. So I'm urging this person to get in contact, as we urgently need to speak with you. And I want to reassure this anonymous caller that any information they will give will be treated in the strictest of confidence.
And if anyone did need any further incentive to come forward, there is also a financial reward that's been put up as well.
Yes, that's correct, Rav. There's a £20,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest and prosecution of Sami's killers.
OK, Mark, thank you for joining us today. If you are that anonymous caller, please do pick up the phone now and tell police what you know and give Sami's family the answers and closure they deserve and so desperately need. Now, you can call Mark's team directly on 0208 345 3715. That will take you through to the major incident room, and our phone lines are open too. It's free to call us from landlines and mobile phones. The number for us is 08000 468 999. Now, let's get on with our first appeal. Last month, 18-year-old Suleiman and his younger brother were at home in Stourbridge in the West Midlands when a gang of thieves using an unusual disguise targeted his house. And this wasn't their only attempt that day. On the 16th of August this year, 18-year-old Suleiman was at home in Stourbridge working on his university applications.
I was upstairs in my bedroom. I'd been dealing with some admin stuff for my university offer at the time. It was just me and my younger brother, Yusuf, at home. My mother had just popped out to the shops. Not too much going on, just tedious work.
Around 3:45 in the afternoon, Suleiman heard something in the family's front drive.
I heard a car moving around outside. I thought initially nothing of it. I thought maybe someone might be turning around, they might be driving past.
Unbeknown to him, 4 men in a red Ford Fiesta were prowling around the neighbourhood. All had their faces covered, and one was wearing a monkey mask. They pulled up outside Suleiman's family home.
It was when they lingered for too long, I thought this is a bit odd. So I went to the bedroom window and I saw a red Ford reversing up the drive. And I saw that the passenger was looking up towards the house and he had a monkey mask on. I thought, who are they? What are they here for? I mean, it could be anything. It could just be simple burglary. It could be something much more serious.
The men rushed towards the house.
So I shouted to my brother to come upstairs and call the police. They'd started banging on the front door, maybe to check if someone was home, I'm not sure. When they had no response, they decided we'll kick the door, so they started kicking the door quite hard until the door flew open.
Scared for their safety, Suleiman made an incredibly brave split-second decision.
I was shouting out the window. The police had been called, you know, get out of here, just trying to make some kind of presence known in the hope that it might, you know, worry them. Luckily for us, when they heard that, they jumped into the car and shouted a few derogatory remarks back and then sped off. So we went downstairs to check and we saw that the door and everything had all been damaged. But luckily, we couldn't see that there'd been any further damage or they'd taken anything.
The thieves had left empty-handed, but the brothers weren't the only victims of the masked men that day. Police are linking it to 3 other attempted burglaries in the area. Not long before they were at Suleiman's house, the men and the red Ford Fiesta were spotted on another street close by. It's believed they attempted to smash a window with a plant pot before once again leaving empty-handed. Their next target was captured on CCTV. It shows 3 men trying to enter a house before the homeowner, like Suleiman, scares them away. Undeterred, their relentless pursuit led them to a 4th home. This time, CCTV captures the Fiesta reversing up a driveway. The man with the monkey mask gets out and tries the front door before returning to the car. Fortunately for the homeowners, the burglars didn't succeed on any of their attempts. But police are concerned about what they'll do next. For Suleiman, the bizarre events of that day are never far from his thoughts.
It's just a very shocking experience, and I think definitely for some of our elderly neighbours, it is always a bit of a shake-up. I mean, at night or something is one thing, but in broad daylight was a bit scary to us.
They really are an intimidating gang, and clearly they need to be found before they go even further. Joining me now is Detective Inspector Dean Kett from the West Midlands Police. Dean, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Can we just start by talking about this gang's MO? How do they operate?
Good morning. From CCTV and witness accounts, we know that there was 4 suspects in a vehicle moving between several properties in quite a short space of time. They appear to be targeting properties that they hope are going to be vacant. There's no cars on the driveways. One will stay in the car, the remaining will get out. It looks like they're trying to see if any doors or windows are insecure, but if not, they've got no reservations and using force to gain access.
And we saw that from the film. They were literally kicked the door in. Now let's talk about the mask that we saw one of them wearing. We've got one in the studio which is similar, but just talk us through what you know about the mask that the offender wore.
Yeah, it is unusual because obviously it draws attention to the offenders, but we believe it's going to be a latex or rubber sort of effect and probably got fur or hair around it, even though he's got his hood up there.
OK, so we can see that there from the image. That is quite clear. And also you're keen to draw the viewer's attention to at least one of the other offenders there, because
Yes.
we've got quite a clear look at his face.
It's easy to get your attention drawn to the mask, but if you do look at the suspect next to him, you can clearly see his eyes, his eyebrows and the top of his nose. And I feel that if he was a neighbour or you went to school or college with him, friend or family member, if you know who he is, I think there's a fair chance you would be able to identify him. So I'd ask the public just to focus on him as well.
Have a look at that as well. OK, now we've heard there that the gang did strike multiple times, and we do have some CCTV of some of those other attempts here. Let's just have a look at this clip. What can we see here?
So here we've got the 3 offenders. We believe one's left in the car. They're wearing black clothing, but there is some distinctive logos that you'll see on there. Obviously, they have got their heads and faces covered or partially covered. And again, I would just say, make sure you do focus on the male where you can see his eyes. We believe they're late teens to early 20s, slim to medium builds.
OK, so someone hopefully would recognise. And also, we've got the vehicle that we believe they used. Let's have a look at this. What's this clip here?
So we know that it's a red Ford Fiesta, most likely an ST model, looking at the shape and the alloy wheels. We know that the plate it was displaying is a cloned plate and the real vehicle is a different make and model.
So, of course, we want anyone to be on the lookout if they think they've seen that car in the area, perhaps acting suspiciously. Just to hone in on where that occurred, we're going to see a map now. Let's just have a look at this. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail for obvious security reasons, but can you just explain what we're seeing here, Dean?
So you'll see that there was 5 properties targeted within quite a short space of time using that vehicle. They're all in the Stourbridge area of the West Midlands.
OK, so that's what the numbers are. These are all the attempts where they occurred. So again, people, please be on the lookout for the vehicle and, of course, the people that were in there. Now, obviously, we saw Suleiman in the film there, just a young lad trying to, get ready for university. I know that you and your team have been in touch with him because clearly this was a horrific thing for anyone to experience. How is he?
Yeah, I spoke to him earlier this week. Happy to say that he hasn't let it impact him too greatly. He was successful in having an offer from his first choice of university. He's accepted that place and he's now studying down south, and also his family are also doing well, including his brother, as are the other victims.
Which is great to hear. And just in case any of our viewers are watching this and are obviously scared and intimidated, I know you want to reassure them that this is a rare type of crime.
Yes, it's very unusual for people to be so brazen in the daylight, targeting properties where people could be inside.
OK, so we just need people to get in touch and tell us who they are. Dean, thank you for now. Do you know who they are? Perhaps you've seen a friend or a family member with maybe a mask like this. Perhaps they've sold or passed it on recently. If you can help with this or any of the other cases coming up today, our phone lines are open.
Detectives are really hoping you can help with today's first appeal. It's such a shocking case. Last year, NHS worker in Bristol was walking home when he was the victim of a vicious racist attack that police are treating as attempted murder. As you can imagine, this is a particularly serious and upsetting case.
21-year-old K-Dog is an up-and-coming rapper on the Bristol scene. A keen footballer, he works for the NHS as part of the domestic team at Southmead Hospital.
I do enjoy working there, and I like to talk to people, and obviously I'm on the wards all the time. Some people obviously feel lonely in the hospital and stuff, so it's just, you get it. So obviously you just go have conversations with them.
Mostly, he's the loudest person in the house. He used to be so bubbly and everything full on with life, and that sadly has changed.
On the 22nd of July 2020, K-Dog left work and went to catch his bus.
I finished my shift around 4 o'clock. I was catching a bus because I had football later on that evening.
At the same time, a blue Honda Accord was seen driving erratically in the area. K-Dog left the hospital and started walking up Monks Park Avenue. Moments later, the blue Honda Accord turned into the same road. K-Dog was unaware as the car passed the hospital entrance and accelerated towards him.
It literally got hit from the side. My face hit the windscreen mirror of the car. And I literally, my legs, part of my legs hit the wall, and I literally went through it and went all over in the garden.
The attackers had deliberately driven into K-Dog and hurled racist abuse at him as he lay severely injured on the floor.
When it happened, I thought it could have kind of happened to anyone, but then obviously with the racial abuse that got shouted, it just led me to thinking, yeah, that's the reason I got attacked.
K-Dog was rushed into hospital and needed emergency surgery.
To see his face and the wounds on his legs and everything, it was painful to see.
The first time I saw my face is when I came back home, and knowing that I was going to be like that for a long time, obviously, and that the scarring was going to literally be on my face for the rest of my life. I was really angry, upset, and emotional as well at the same time.
A year later, the events of that day are still affecting K-Dog and his family.
At the moment, I would say physically with my legs wise and all of that, I'm nearly getting there with the recovery. But when it comes to the mental side of it, I'm nowhere near yet. So I still got a long way to go, but hopefully we'll come out the right end of it.
Such a shocking and upsetting attack, and as we saw in the film there, it's understandably it had a huge impact on K-Dog and on his family. Joining us now is Superintendent Mike Buck, who's investigating this case. Mike, thanks so much for coming in and telling us more. Why do you think Kay was targeted?
I believe Kay was attacked purely because of the colour of his skin.
It's terrible, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit more about exactly what happened that day?
Of course. So this was last year, the 22nd of July, and Kay had just finished his shift at Southmead Hospital, and he was just going home. He was going to catch his bus. And as he walked up Monks Park Avenue, that's where, firstly, he was brutally attacked, and then, secondly, had this abhorrent racist abuse shouted at him.
Now, the drivers were driving erratically along this road, weren't they, before they drove into Kay. What happened after that?
Yeah, so it's a blue Honda Accord. It drives into Monks Park Avenue and it's abandoned there at the scene after hitting Kay. I need to know this morning who the driver was and who the passenger was.
Tell us a bit more about this car, Mike.
So it's a blue Honda Accord, and we can see in the video here, it's just driving along Southmead Road. It's about to turn right into Monks Park Avenue. And somebody watching this morning has some information that I need.
And Kay was hit with some force from this car. He suffered some terrible injuries, and it's broad daylight, as we can see from this picture. Surely there must have been some witnesses.
Yeah, it was a lovely sunny day, just like today. We have had people come forward with information. But somebody knows somebody who was acting suspiciously that day, and we really need to get justice. So please, if you're watching this morning, do the right thing and get in touch.
Absolutely. As we mentioned there, you know, Kay suffered horrific injuries. We could just see from the pictures there. The family wants some answers. Kay wants some answers. You're urging anybody to come forward, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. The injuries were horrific, but those psychological scars, he's got to live with for the rest of his life. So, yeah, we need some help.
Mike, thanks very much. We'll catch up with you again later in the programme. Well, as you saw in the film, Kay is lucky to be alive, the victim of an attack just for being himself. These people need to be found before they do it again. So if you can help, the number to call is 08000 468 999.
Now, do you know this man? Detectives in West Yorkshire need to find him after he sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl in the Fartown area of Huddersfield back in June. Joining us now to tell us more is Detective Chief Inspector Tanya Wilkins. Tanya, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Can you just talk us through what happened?
Yeah, of course. On Sunday, the 20th of June this year, approximately 7:45 p.m, our victim, a 13-year-old girl, was in the park, known locally as Pavilion Park, in the Fartown area of Huddersfield with two friends. They've noticed a man watching them, which has made them feel a little bit uncomfortable, so they've decided to leave the park. Our victim's left in one direction and her friends have gone in the other direction. And after a short time, our victim has noticed this man nearby, so has decided to contact her friends. And as she's done this, he's jumped out at her and sexually assaulted her.
Absolutely terrifying. Are you able to just describe the area for those that don't know it, just to try and appeal to someone who may have even been there?
Yeah, on Sunday the 20th of June, it was quite a nice day. I would have expected, it's a park which is regularly used by people within the community. There were quite a few people in the park that day, family, and you know, people walking their dogs and things. So I would have expected someone in the area to have heard or seen something.
Definitely. You know, they're very, very frightening to happen to anyone, especially a 13-year-old girl. I know that you and your team, including specialist officers, have been in touch with her. How is she doing?
Yeah, she's doing incredibly well. I mean, as you can imagine, it's such a traumatic incident for anyone, a particular 13-year-old girl. But as you've mentioned, our officers who are specially trained are looking after her, and she has got an incredible family around her who are supporting her. She didn't have any physical injuries, but as you can imagine, you know, it's an awful lot for a 13-year-old to have to contend with. But she's on the mend, and she's definitely getting through it.
Good, very traumatic to happen to anyone, though, as you say. Now, the offender, we need to find out who he is, and he did do something unusual, didn't he, at the time of the incident?
Yeah, really unusual. As he kind of jumped out on our victim, he roared, which, you know, is a very strange thing for anyone to do. So I can imagine if that's happened to anybody else, they would certainly remember that as being very odd at the time.
Absolutely. And as you've said, it was a busy park. There's lots of people around. They may well have seen or certainly heard him demonstrating such unique behaviour.
Yeah, definitely. As the male's jumped out on our victim, he's picked her up, and at this point our victim has screamed, which has been heard by her friends on the phone, but also friends that were still in the park. So I can imagine anyone in the park at that time would have heard her scream or actually seen something really unusual. So I really would urge them to come forward to let us know.
OK, well, let's have a look at this e-fit that the brave victim was able to create. Talk me through the description of the man we need to identify.
Our victim's been able to give a really good description of this man, and I think it's because she's probably seen him early, because she saw him earlier on before this incident. She describes him as a white male in his 30s, aged about, in his 30s, about 5'8" tall, wearing grey baggy jogging bottoms and a black hooded top.
OK, so we need to know who this person is, and it's worth saying that with the extensive inquiries that you and your team have undertaken here, you're confident that you could eliminate people should, if names have come forward, you can eliminate anyone that's not involved in this?
Yeah, definitely. We have done extensive inquiries locally and not been able to trace them, so it could be that he's not from our local area. But if anybody does come forward with any names, we are confident that we can eliminate them if they're not the person responsible.
And finally, I know you're keen to just say to anyone that's worried at home, parents of similar-aged children perhaps, this is a very serious but a very rare crime, isn't it?
Yeah, I would like to reassure the public that this is, thankfully, a very rare occurrence. So,
yeah, OK, so not to worry too much, but please, it is still a terrifying experience for the victim. Do take another look at that e-fit there. Who is he? If you can help, please do get in touch using the details on your screens now. OK, so we also need to hear from you if you can help with our next appeal. A shocking and violent assault on a man as he made his way to the shops in Liverpool. Terry Dunn grew up with his family in the Clubmoor area of Liverpool. A keen fisherman, his weekends were often spent on the lake.
We spent a lot of time when we were kids fishing in the local parks. In fact, we would go out on a Friday and we probably wouldn't be back until the Sunday. the Larkhill Park known as the Ducky. Terry, in his adult life, laid claim to it being his park, that being his lake, because he spent a lot of time there when he was an adult.
Terry was also well known in his local community.
Incredibly generous with his time. He was one of those people that would always do something for you. You know, he would generally give you the shirt off his back if that was the last thing that you needed.
After his mum passed in 2008, Terry found it hard to cope.
They had a very strong bond, and from that he then began drinking. And he drank for escapism to a level where you know, he was vulnerable, and he could be taken advantage of by people. He did get up and he did look after himself, but he kind of knew that he didn't have many people around him.
On the 18th of June 2019, Terry left his flat in Larkhill Close to make one of his regular journeys to withdraw money from the credit union.
He was on his way into Broadway shopping centre. It's no more than a 15-minute walk. It's a route that he knows well. It's a route that he wouldn't avoid because it's an unsafe route.
At around 20 to 4, he reached Kilrea Close, but little did he know he was being followed. A witness nearby saw Terry being chased into an alleyway. There, he endured a sustained and brutal beating with a golf club.
I was abroad, and I got a phone call. I arrived back into Liverpool at approximately around about 9:30 that night, and then I got a taxi straight from the airport straight to the hospital. Incredibly shocking to see, you know, your brother literally lying on a bed, broken. And then obviously when we realised the extent of his injuries, we couldn't understand the ferocity or the brutality of the attack as to why it happened.
Terry was left with a ruptured spleen and multiple shattered bones.
He had over, I think it was 50+ hours of surgery to put him back together. He was left with life-changing, debilitating injuries.
After 12 long weeks in hospital, Terry finally returned home to continue his recovery, but the attack was still taking its toll.
We had to have several visits back to the mental health unit because he was having flashbacks from the attack. When you combine that with his injuries, his body's gone through a massive amount of turmoil.
The experience proved too much for Terry's body to handle. On the 24th of September, just 2 weeks out of hospital, he suffered a heart attack and died. The post-mortem linked it to his injuries from the attack.
He would have been 4 weeks, 5 weeks later, he would have celebrated his 50th birthday, so he didn't quite reach that milestone.
Happy birthday! 50 today!
We celebrated it for him, albeit low-key. We went to his local park, the Ducky, where he used to love fishing, and we set some balloons off and we had a little bit of a party in there for him. Whilst he wasn't there physically, I'm sure he was there with us in spirit.
Just dreadful. We first featured this case last year, and Terry's family still need justice. I'm joined now via video call by Detective Inspector Catherine Walsh, who's investigating. Catherine, good morning. Can you just remind us when and where this took place?
Yes, this occurred on Tuesday, the 18th of June 2019, at around 20 to 4 in the afternoon. Terry was walking along Kilby Close in the direction of an alleyway which leads onto Wapshire Road. It was in this alleyway that he was subjected to that brutal assault by the male with the golf club.
I mean, what do you know about Terry? I mean, is there any reason why you can see that he was targeted in this way?
Terry was very well known and well liked within the community, but it does seem that he was specifically targeted for some reason. And we believe the offender did have a grudge against him.
OK, now, clearly we need to find out who's responsible, and we have got some CCTV that we're going to show now. Talk us through what we're seeing here, because it could be crucial evidence.
We see Terry walking along Kilby Close in the direction of the alleyway where he was attacked. He's followed a short time later by this male who is carrying what we believe to be a golf club. He then makes away along Kilby Close. About a minute after Terry was assaulted, we see the same male running back along Kilby Close. OK, now that footage moved quite quickly, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to play that again, just so our viewers can really see what happened there. So, first of all, this person at the top of the screen, that's Terry there, walking just out of the shot there. But it's this next person here. If we slow that down, you just mentioned there, he's got something in his hand, and that's what you believe is the golf club that was used. Yes, that's correct. The male is believed to be in his 20s, about 5'7" tall, wearing dark clothing with his hood up. We need to speak to this person as he may have vital information about the attack on Terry. Indeed, and just as you're talking there, we can see the second of the images there. You believe that's the same person that's now leaving after the attack took place. Now, Catherine, you have provided us with a second a piece of CCTV. Again, this could be crucial in a different way because there's someone on here that you think could potentially be an eyewitness. Let's just play that footage now. Talk us through what we're seeing here. Yes, this male is walking in the opposite direction and may have passed Terry and the male with the golf club prior to the attack. This male is believed to be in his 70s. We believe from the local area he was wearing a baseball cap and was carrying a shopping bag. We've yet to trace this male, so if anybody does know who he is, please do get in touch, as the information could prove vital in this investigation. Could be so important. And just to clarify, this is an eyewitness that you believe this person could have seen something that happened there. Now, if anyone is at home and they're watching this and they're a little bit nervous or scared about coming forward, but they do hold what could be vital information, what would you say to them? I would say that any information can be treated within the strictest confidence. Terry's family are still devastated by what's happened and they're struggling to come to terms with his death and grieving for their loss. They need answers and they want closure. So I would appeal to anybody who has any information to do the right thing and please get in touch. Yeah, very well said. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us. Do you know what happened that day? Terry's family, as you have heard, just want the truth. If you can help them, please do get in touch.
In December 2018, 77-year-old Morin Whale was enjoying a quiet evening at home in Barnet in North London when a gang of thieves broke in. The burglary, very sadly, cost her her life.
Hello? 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 Maureen? Hello, Maureen?
77-year-old Morin Whale lived in Barnet in North London.
My aunt very much loved Barnet and the area. She loved the community. I don't think she'd really have chosen to live anywhere else, and it was her safe place.
She lived alone in the house she'd grown up in, enjoying retirement from a varied working life, including a spell as an air hostess.
My Aunt Morin was very, very independent. She was obviously this woman who went out, kind of conquered the world. She was engaged like several times, but never ever felt the man was right for her. And she felt strong enough in herself to be this single woman who could do exactly what she wanted, which for her generation wasn't probably considered normal. She was a lovely lady.
On the 4th of December 2018, Maureen was spending the evening at home. But the house, which had always been a safe haven to Maureen, had also become the target of a group of burglars. CCTV captured the moment the men made their move on Maureen's home.
£750. Let's see how many of our 100 people said hello. It's right. Turnham Green was right, took us all the way down to 1. Loudon now takes us down.
The men went in through the unlocked back door and started searching the house.
Is it a pointless answer?
The gang grabbed Maureen's handbag and fled. They'd been in the house for just 6 minutes. Badly shaken, Maureen called for help.
Hello, police. What's your emergency? I've just been burgled. Hold on. I'll get someone out there. Are you okay?
I'm shaking, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Do you need an ambulance or anything? As you're shaking? Yeah, are you finding it hard to breathe?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm going to call an ambulance. All right. Hello? 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 Maureen? Hello, Maureen?
A few minutes into the 999 call, Maureen stopped responding. She was having a heart attack. By the time the ambulance arrived, Maureen was very seriously ill. Her niece Gina had a call from the hospital.
They said she's been taken quite poorly and she's at Barnet General Hospital. And I said, do you think I should come now? And they went, yes, we think you should come now. I got in the car and it was horrible. You know, when you just suddenly think, I've probably gone through road traffic cameras too fast because I'm just worried about getting here and I don't know where I'm driving.
Maureen died a few hours later. Police believe her heart attack was triggered by the shock of the burglary.
It was devastating to see my aunt like that. She was a proud woman, and for her life to end as a result of somebody breaking and entering is the absolute worst. You always hope your relative, when the time comes, that they're going to have a dignified death. This isn't the way it should have happened.
It's just awful. Now, this is a case we first featured back in 2019, but it wasn't until last month there was an inquest into Maureen's death. The coroner confirmed what the police had thought all along, that Maureen's heart attack was a consequence of the burglary. Now, earlier this week, I was joined by video call by the investigating officer, DCI Vicky Tunstall, and I started off by asking her about the coroner's findings.
Well, this is an enormously significant step forward for us because as an investigation team, we always felt at the outset that Maureen's death was caused by the burglary that occurred just before. And now that we have the inquest finding, we know that not just from a scientific pathological reason we have that the burglary caused the death of Morin, but it's now become the finding of a judicial process through the coroner's inquest. So from our perspective, it means that should we identify the suspects for this burglary, they will actually be arrested for manslaughter, and we will be trying to secure charges for manslaughter.
How are the family feeling about the coroner's ruling, Vicky?
They're exceptionally relieved. We've had contact with the family throughout the investigation and leading up to the inquest, and it's been a long time. But they're very relieved now to know that there is this scientific confirmation and a judicial confirmation that the burglary that occurred at Morin's home address that night was the cause for her subsequent death.
Now, obviously, these people still need to be found, so what do we know about the evening Morin died?
Well, we know that it was a very ordinary Tuesday evening. It was the 4th of December 2018. Morin actually lived alone at her home address. She was 77 years of age, almost 78. And while she'd led a very productive and independent life, on that particular evening, she was at home watching television alone. But we know that from CCTV footage that was secured from nearby, at 17:34, we find 3 suspects acting suspiciously around the front of her home address. And one of these suspects then climbs over a wooden side gate entrance. And once having climbed over the entrance, he then moves to open the door so that his 2 associates can come through that side alleyway and up to the rear side entrance into Morin's home address. We know that those 3 suspects are then seen leaving the address at 1800 hours. And we also know that at 1801, Morin makes an emergency phone call to 999 asking for the police and stating that a burglary had just occurred at her home. Unfortunately, during the telephone call to the operator lost contact with Morin at 1804 and believed that she was suffering from breathing difficulties and therefore called the London Ambulance Service to the location as well. And sadly, the police arrived 15 minutes later, but unfortunately, Morin was already at that point in cardiac arrest and then subsequently and sadly died the following day.
It's just awful, Vicky. What do we know about the suspects?
Well, we know that there are three suspects, and as I said, one is the leader that climbs over the gate to allow access to his 2 associates. This first suspect that climbs over was wearing a black zipped up gilet jacket, as described, had underneath either a light or a white coloured long sleeve top, and had a dark woolen hat on his head. It's been described as a beanie style hat. We know that the second suspect had a long sleeved top on with dark patches around the chest, the shoulder and the top of the back, that this person had possibly a hood up that had a fur trim to it and had dark trousers with light trainers. And then we know that the third suspect had a hooded top on that had a peaked cap underneath it. We believe that suspect was wearing grey tracksuit bottoms and had dark trainers on.
What did the thieves take?
So on entering Morin's home, we know that they took a handbag from her. And in fact, this handbag was discovered some days later on the 13th of December, discarded in a nearby front garden. Unfortunately, inside it, there were no contents, and we've been unable to determine what exactly were the contents within Morin's handbag when this handbag was stolen during the burglary.
Now, Morin's home wasn't the only one that was burgled that day, was it?
No, there were some other burglaries nearby, 2 of which we've linked forensically to the burglary at Morin's address. And we believe that actually there were 2 other burglaries that happened within a 1.3 kilometre radius that also happened on that day. And we believe, due to the method used during those burglaries and the access that was gained, that we believe that those 4 other burglaries are linked to Maureen's burglary at her address.
Vicky, what would it mean to Maureen's family for these people to be caught?
Well, it would mean everything. She had a really loving and has a really loving, supportive family, a niece that she was particularly close to, a lady called Gina, who has been highly supportive to the investigation team and assisting us with appeals for information and witnesses prior to this appeal. And it would mean everything to them to know that the people responsible for Maureen's death and burglary are identified, located and arrested.
Vicky, thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's such a callous crime. Can you help give Maureen's family the answers they need? Take another look at that CCTV. Do you know them? If you do, please do the right thing and pick up the phone before there are more victims. The number to call is 08000 468 999. It's free from landlines and mobile phones, and that line will be open until midday today. Or you can text us anytime at 63399. Text the word crime, leave a space, then write your message. Your text will be charged at your standard message rate. And you can always send us an email too. The address is cwl@bbc.co.uk.
John Paul. Now to a distressing case Avon and Somerset Police really need your help to solve. Were you in Bristol seeing in the new year of 2019? Police are trying to find out what happened to a young woman who was found in a very bad state in the early hours of the morning and who they believe is the victim of a sexual assault. Joining us in the studio now is DS Emily Welch, who's investigating. Emily, good morning. What can you talk us through what happened?
So the victim was out on a New Year's Eve evening with her friends. She was attending the Black Swan pub, which is in the eastern area of Bristol. So it was an all-night event, New Year's Eve. Everyone was having a good time. Her friends left early and she was with a guy, and she had had quite a lot to drink and had left with this guy and lost a lot of her memory at that point. So she woke up in an alleyway near to the pub, having not known what had happened to her, and she was covered in bruises and scratches. Her clothing was torn. In fact, she'd lost an item of her clothing. Her shorts were missing. So it was fairly obvious that some sort of sexual attack had happened or attempted to happen. She was very distressed and she ran out of the alleyway to try and find some help. And a very helpful member of the public, a guy carrying a skateboard, stepped in to help her and helped her to a taxi rank where she was able to get home.
I mean, it's absolutely dreadful that she has no recollection of what happened, and sadly, because of the way she was, you've concluded that she was sexually assaulted. OK. You do have some CCTV, though, that we're going to see now. Talk us through what we're seeing here, Emily, because it could be crucial to the investigation.
So that's the victim there. She's very distressed. We believe the guy on the left could be the suspect. You then see her come into play again, but this time she's with the guy that helped her. And I emphasise the guy with the skateboard there is the guy that helped her. And we're very keen to speak to anybody who may have seen any of those people.
Yeah, that could be very, very important. It's not the clearest quality, Emily, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to play that again, and just to make it crystal clear that here in the centre of the screen, that is the victim there, walking. On the left, that is the person that you desperately want to speak to about this. That's sort of pursuing her there. And now this shot, we see her with a man with a skateboard. That is the Good Samaritan, if you like. That's who's put her in a taxi. But equally, you really want to identify who he is, because he could have so much information that could be so helpful to this investigation. Emily, this is New Year's Eve. It's a busy night, if not the busiest night of the year. There's going to be a lot of people around, and surely they could be witnesses to this.
They really could,
just describe, if anyone was there in the area, what this young lady looked like, because she was quite distinctive at the time.
She was very distinctive. So she had short purple hair, a lilac-y purple colour, which would have been very distinctive. She was also wearing socks that you can see in the
We just saw it in the CCTV there earlier. She was wearing socks that were quite highly pulled up, and they were striped.
Yeah, so they've got 2 white stripes round the leg that are pulled up, and she would have been missing her shorts and obviously covered in scratches and bruises. bruises, as well as having holes in her tights.
So we desperately need to hear from you. And if you were that Good Samaritan yourself, we need to hear from you as well. Please get in touch if you can help. Desperately need your help with our first appeal. It's a devastating and extremely distressing case. In August 2018, 7-year-old Joel Urhie was asleep at home in Deptford, South East London, when arsonists struck. The attack cost Joel his life.
Joel was born on the 5th of November 2010, and he was a very lovely boy, very friendly. He was very happy, and he loved reading as well.
Yes, Joel! Come on! That's my boy!
His nickname was my handbag. That's how we were close. He was light in the midst of darkness. That's who Joel was.
In August 2018, the UK was in the middle of a glorious heatwave. Taking advantage of the good weather, Joel's mum, Effie, took him to one of his favourite places.
He loved going to the park because he wanted to make new friends. He played on the swing and run all over the place.
As evening set in, Effie and Joel made their way home.
When me and Joel came back from the park, he had his shower. Then we were in the living room watching some telly. My daughter was upstairs, just chilling out in her room.
After a few hours relaxing, Effie and Joel ended up falling asleep on the sofa.
Around 2:30 in the middle of the night, we wake up. He said, "Oh, Mom, I want to go to the toilet." So we went upstairs to wee.
Then they both went to bed. At around 3 a.m, a lone figure approached their home. At the front door, they set fire to something and pushed it through the letterbox. The fire quickly took hold downstairs. In her room, Effie's daughter woke up and realised something was wrong. As she opened her door, the fire surged up the stairs.
I heard my daughter scream fire.
With flames consuming her, Effie's daughter leapt from her window to safety.
We woke up together, so we're just thinking, what is the way out? I could see the fire from the shade of the door. I was screaming for help. So it was like very, very drastic moment for me, having to think about my 2 kids as well. Are they going to come out alive?
What's happening?
They had no choice but to jump. But Effie knew that hitting the concrete floor below could be fatal.
I told him that, you know what, I'm going to jump out. When I jump out, you're going to jump on me. I'm going to cushion you. So he said, okay.
Love you, Mommy.
He said, Mommy, I love you. He told me we're going to make it together.
Effie jumped out of the window and waited for Joel to jump down too. He never made it.
Fire brigade came, and finally they came and told me that he's dead.
Smoke and fire had overcome little Joel, there was no way he could be saved.
I felt devastated. It's like a death sentence. And someone, it is a death sentence. Like I said, if you divide me into 4 parts, 3 parts of me is gone. It's a hole that has been opened that cannot be closed.
Effie is still hoping that Joel's killer will be caught. For now, all she's left with are the dreadful memories of what happened that night.
I went back to the house. The house was completely empty. I could not believe my eyes. The memory of Joel dying inside that property, it was very shocking. Just within a twinkle of an eye, the house is empty. His life was cut short too quick. Please, whoever is responsible, come forward. Something is not right for you to set fire to the house, wanting to kill the whole family. Something is not right somewhere. Something is not right.
Really is such an upsetting case. We have to get justice for Joel's family. We first featured this case back in 2019 and they're still waiting for answers. Last week I spoke to the investigating officer, Detective Inspector John Marriott, to get the latest on this case, and I started by asking him why Joel's house was attacked that night.
Well, at the moment, that's why we're appealing. We have no idea really why the attack has occurred. We cannot understand why anyone would target a mother and 2 innocent children in their own home. So we really need help.
So what do you know about what happened that night?
All we really know is just before 3:24 in the morning of Tuesday, the 7th of August, 2018, a figure is seen coming from the rear of the address to the front door of Joel's house. And then there's a bright burning and a fire quickly takes seat in the front of the house. And it's so fierce, it's obviously been set with some sort of accelerant and deliberately. And neighbours have called the London Fire Brigade within minutes of this occurring.
It really did take hold so quickly. It's utterly tragic. And you don't have a lot of information at all about who's responsible at this stage, but you are appealing to everyone, aren't you, to come together with any information they do hold about just who is responsible?
Yes, that's right. We do not know who has done this or why at the moment, but we believe there are people in that community who do know why. And we're appealing to them to come forward because we need to catch these people who committed such a terrible act with just complete disregard for the life of an innocent child.
We heard from Joel's mum in the film there, and we know just how much this would surely mean to her to just get some answers.
Absolutely. She is, of course, devastated, heartbroken. Her life will obviously never be the same again, but she does want answers as to why this has happened, which has led to such a tragic end for Joel.
It truly has. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
It really is a heartbreaking case. Joel was just an innocent child with his whole life ahead of him. If you know who did this, please do the right thing and get in touch.
Now to a case that West Midlands Police have spent the last 9 years investigating. On the 21st of September 2012, Kyle Sheehan, aged just 16, was fatally stabbed. We're joined this morning by his mum, Hayley. Hayley, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us today. First of all, could you just tell us a bit more about Kyle? What was he like?
Kyle was very loved. He was bubbly, outgoing. He had a lot of friends. He loved going out, playing football, playing on his games. And like I said again, he was very, very well loved. Yeah.
So, Hayley, what happened on the 21st of September 2012?
I had a phone call to say that he'd been stabbed in the leg in the park, walking home one night. He actually called me to say, Mum, I'm coming home now. And he never got there because he was fatally stabbed in his leg.
It's absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
It's something no mother should have to go through. There was a fight, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was an altercation in the park where Kyle was there with his two friends, and it turns out that Kyle got stabbed in his main artery. So a week later, having had his leg amputated 3 times as well, been through a 7-hour operation, and then he died on the following Friday. I had to turn his machines off.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
What has it been like, Hayley, for you and your family these past 9 years?
They've been horrendous. Like, I have to wake up every day, reliving it, knowing that he's not here anymore. He was my only child, 16 at the time as well. He had his whole life ahead of him. He was, you know, construction at college. He was scouted for Birmingham City Football Club. He was a really good boy. Never got into no bother, and all he wanted to do was enjoy life, and obviously it got taken away from him that day.
Hayley, I'm so sorry you've had to go through this. Hopefully we'll be able to find some answers. Thank you. It really is such a tragic case. As Hayley said, Kyle was simply walking home. I'm also joined today by Detective Sergeant Steve Parks, who's investigating. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
What's the focus of the appeal this morning? Because the park was very busy that day, wasn't it?
It was, yes. It was a Friday evening. It was late on in the evening. A group of people had gathered, up to about 30 people present. There was an allegation made from some parties in a car park just off Mill Lane in St Leys Park that evening, and that allegation led to a disorder. And we're trying to focus in on a specific part of that disorder where 2 men were fighting, one of whom was brandishing a piece of wood. The man was disarmed and somebody produced a knife, and in that scuffle, Kyle received those fatal injuries.
And Kyle wasn't involved in any criminality or violence at all, was he?
No, not at all. He was a happy-go-lucky young man. He was there with his friends. They were there to socialise. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now, as we said, 9 years have passed. Allegiances may have changed. You're appealing for people watching today to come forward with information that they might have been sitting on.
Absolutely, yes. 9 years, as you say, is a very long time. Friendships change, allegiances change, social groups change. Even the person that may have done this, they may sit in there remorseful, wondering how they can come forward, perhaps. We would urge that person to come forward, or if people with information know something, please contact us.
And they can do that in confidence as well, can't they?
Absolutely.
There is a reward attached to Crime Stoppers. Tell us more about that.
Yes, we approached the charity Crime Stoppers and they were very generous in their award of £10,000, which will be given to a person who comes forward, who gives information which will lead directly to the arrest and conviction of the people responsible for Kyle's murder.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Hayley, if I may, I'll just come back to you. For anybody that's watching that might have that vital piece of information that could give you and your family closure, what would you say to them?
Please come forward. Anything, you know, just the minute thing could, you know, lead to, you know, just any. I just need closure. Like me and my family, we can't carry on because it's a big dark hole that's been brought into our lives, the whole family. We miss him so much, and I just please beg anybody that knows anything to talk to the police, please.
Hayley, thank you very much. Very powerful words. As we said, this is a devastating case, a 16-year-old boy who never made it home to his mum. If you know anything at all about what happened that day in September 2012, please do the right thing and pick up the phone. As well as contacting us, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. Do you recognise this man? He's wanted after he shot a man outside his house in Romford, London, last October in what police think was a random attack. Well, I'm joined now by Detective Constable Rob Wilner from the Metropolitan Police. Rob, thank you so much for coming in this morning. Tell us a bit more about what happened.
Yes, certainly. So on Wednesday, the 14th of October last year, at approximately 7:35 in the morning, our victim was leaving his home address to go to work. As he's gone to enter his work van, he's been approached by the gunman who, from a short distance, has shot him with a shotgun.
I mean, that is terrifying, Rob. How's the victim doing?
The victim received injuries to his leg as a result of the shooting, but however, he's very upset, he's very traumatised by what's happened, obviously unaware of who's done it and why they've done it.
So there's no known motive, no reason why this victim was targeted?
No, there isn't. Unfortunately, we haven't got a motive as to why it's happened, but obviously we're very keen to identify the gunman and get him and the firearm off the street.
Absolutely. Really strange, though. Tell us exactly where this happened.
OK, so this has occurred, as I said, on Wednesday, the 14th of October last year. It's occurred in Romford, RM7 postcode, in a road called White Hart Lane, as we see here. It's occurred approximately about 7:35 in the morning. And as we can see here, anyone within this vicinity may have seen what's happened.
That's it. It was a busy area. You know, someone could have spotted something suspicious. Now, you've managed to get some really good CCTV footage of the attacker before, during and after the shooting. I've seen it already, and it is quite shocking to look at. The actual shooting itself is blocked by the CCTV camera.
Yep.
But let's go through it, Rob. We'll start by taking a look at the man waiting on the street. Talk us through what we're seeing here. OK, so this is approximately 6:50 in the morning. We've got our gunman waiting at the bus stop next to the victim's address. We see him here for that's about 45 minutes before shooting. Now, at 7:35, we have the victim come from his address briefly, and then seconds later, he returns and he goes towards his driver's seat. As you can see there, at that point, the gunman runs over and from short distance fires a shotgun at him. During the struggle, a second shot was fired, and fortunately, the victim managed to get back into his address and the gunman's run away. That's shocking. Do we know anything about the weapon at all?
It's a shotgun, that's all we know. We haven't got any further information.
OK, well, let's take a look at the CCTV you have of the shooter in the crime's aftermath. What's going on here?
So this is about 5 minutes later down Rodney Way. This is the shooter now walking away. He's taken his coat off. He has it over front of his arm, and we believe he may be concealing the firearm within his coat.
Where did the gunman go after that?
OK, so as we can see from the map, the gunman has gone down Rodney Way, he's continued south, and he's headed down back towards the junction with White Hart Lane. Unfortunately, it's at that point where we lose him, so he may have got into a vehicle, may have met up with someone else, or maybe even gone into an address.
OK, so we've seen the shooter's movements during and after. What about before?
OK, so before, we know he walks from Rodney Way and goes into White Hart Lane. This is him approximately 7:05 in the morning. He's now on this side of the road, and this is our best opportunity to get a good image of him.
So take us through the description. As you say, it's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've got a white male, approximately about 50 years old, with dark greying hair swept back. He's wearing a blue coat down to his thighs, dark jeans. He has black Adidas trainers on, and he has also a grey tracksuit. And just to note, it appears he has gloves on, he's on his phone, and he has a surgical mask on.
Rob, many thanks for coming in. Really scary stuff, isn't it? Now, thankfully, random attacks like this are incredibly rare, but this victim is lucky to be alive and deserves justice. He was simply going to work. So do you recognise the shooter? Take a good look. Someone must know who he is. Or were you on White Hart Lane in Romford on the morning of Wednesday, the 14th of October last year? And did you see this man, or did you see anything else suspicious?
So need you to get in touch about our next appeal, a really upsetting case on Bonfire Night 2018. 98-year-old Peter Gouldstone was the victim of a violent attack during a burglary that sadly ended his life.
I opened the front door. Dad? I ran upstairs. And I found him lying on the bedroom floor. Like a lot of people of his generation, he didn't actually talk about his experiences in the war very much at all. Well, my dad was in the Royal Corps of Signals. He served in North Africa and Italy. My parents married in 1948. The relationship was close. You know, I mean, they did everything together. She died in 2013, which was, you know, a very significant blow to him. And I think from that time he took life fairly slowly after that in terms of trying to rebuild.
On the 5th of November 2018, Peter Gouldstone was at home in the Bounds Green area of London, where he'd lived for more than 60 years. At 98, he was feeling the effects of old age and had a heart problem, which kept him largely housebound.
My father was very much a strong adherent of routine, and I mean, you could probably have set your watch by him. He tended to get up about 7:30 in the morning and have his breakfast, read the paper. He would put his breakfast things out the night before so that it was ready the next morning.
Peter would have gone to bed at around 9:30 p.m. But that same night, a group of 3 men was scoping out houses in the area. CCTV shows 2 of them approach a neighbouring house, trying doors and looking through windows. They didn't find an easy way in and decided to leave, but not before the cameras got a clear look at one of the men's faces. Police believe the men could then have moved on to target Peter's house. Sometime after 9:30 p.m. that night, intruders removed a fence panel to get into Peter's garden. They forced open the back door. And once inside, the thieves searched everywhere for things to steal. Peter was hard of hearing and wouldn't have heard them come in. The men went upstairs, where they discovered Peter in his bedroom. Police believe he was attacked. Thieves took jewellery belonging to his late wife and a small television before making their escape.
The first time I knew that something was wrong was when I had a call from his next-door neighbour at about 9:20 in the morning. And she told me that she'd seen that the back door of his house was open. I pulled up outside the front of the house where there didn't appear to be anything amiss. I opened the front door. Dad? The first thing I noticed was that the house was very cold. And my father, well, being 98, usually had the central heating on. It was quite clear to me that something was seriously amiss. So I ran upstairs and I think I probably shouted out, "Where are you?" or words to that effect. And I found him lying on the bedroom floor.
Peter was rushed to hospital unconscious, with severe bruising across his body.
The weeks when he was in hospital were pretty harrowing, to say the least. There's the overriding image you've got in your mind of your dad lying on a hospital bed with tubes attached to him. That, as a final memory of a loved one, is pretty awful.
Peter never regained consciousness and died just a few weeks later.
I just can't imagine how somebody would break into the house of somebody who was 98 for next to nothing. You know, we're talking about a TV that was probably it was 7 or 8 years old. My mother's rings, you know, they're of sentimental value. I suppose I'm a bit disillusioned that members of the human race can do this to each other. And it's something I just don't understand.
It's just awful. Well, we first featured Peter's murder in 2019, but unfortunately, his killers are still at large. So last week, I spoke to the investigating officer, Detective Inspector John Marriott, and I started off by asking him what the police know about the night Peter was attacked.
Unfortunately, we know very little. Peter was injured, taken to hospital, never regained consciousness. So we certainly can't be 100% sure of the events. What we know is Peter, as was his habit, went to bed quite early on that night, which is the Monday, it was the 5th of November, 2018, bonfire night. When his son came to see him the next morning, as was normal, he found Peter on the floor. He was clearly very unwell, had extensive bruising around his body. There were signs of a break-in at the house, and we believe that Peter was assaulted by these people during the course of a break-in. And sadly, he died about a month after this break-in.
It is just so horrific that he was found in that state and then sadly lost his life just a short time afterwards. Now, John, there is some CCTV, and I know you want to talk us through that. So just tell us what we're seeing in this footage here.
Yes, it shows what we believe to be a gang of would-be burglars checking out a neighbour's address as a potential target. They're looking through the windows, trying the doors, and then they give up on that address for some reason and head off. This was at around 8:25 p.m. on the night. Obviously, we can't be sure it's the same people, but we really need to speak to them. It's in such close proximity to Peter's address, and you know, a similar thing has obviously happened there. So we need to identify that group.
Yeah, they could be crucial to the investigation just to identify them, and they might hold some vital information about this. So anyone that can recognise those, we want to hear from them. And I have to say, Peter's death is even more tragic when you look at the items that were stolen. Of course, they were of huge sentimental value, but the monetary value wasn't really that high at all.
No, it wasn't. There was some jewellery that had belonged to his late wife. We'll say it was not of great financial value, but clearly of great sentimental value. And then there was also quite an old 26-inch Panasonic television. Again, not worth a huge amount.
It's just so awful, isn't it, when you say it like that, that it's not actually worth that much, but they've stolen it anyway, and this man's lost his life as a result. On the film there, we just heard from Peter's son. I mean, this must be so heartbreaking for them to not have any answers about what happened that night. And that's really why you're doing this appeal today, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So Peter was 98 years old, living independently, long, good life, and then tragically taken away from his family. We want some answers.
Absolutely, we really do. John, thank you for joining us today.
Now, officers investigating the sexual assault of a teenage girl in Sheffield are asking for your help to identify this man. At around 4 p.m. on Friday the 13th of August, the 16-year-old was walking along Langsett Road in the Hillsborough area of the city, and the man approached her. And as she kept walking, he grabbed her and put his hands up the back of her top, Thankfully, the girl managed to push him off and fled the scene and reported the incident. South Yorkshire Police have since worked with the girl to produce the CFIT of the man, who's being described as being in his early 20s, of skinny build, with light brown hair and stubble. He's also apparently got distinctively uneven teeth, possibly with some of them missing. So if this sounds like someone you know, please do get in touch on the usual numbers before he tries something like this again.
This morning's appeals. 3 years ago, as families up and down the country were celebrating Christmas, one was living a nightmare. Just days earlier, their brother and son, Richard Adun Dim, was shot and killed in a senseless and seemingly random attack.
Richard was born at 29 weeks. The doctors at that time, they were not so optimistic about Richard's chances. So I would say from the very beginning, really, that Richard was fighting for survival. You know, he was fighting for life. Richard was a lovely boy. He loves his friends. We were very, very close. He was always with me wherever I go.
20-year-old Richard was studying banking and economics at university.
That was, for me, as a father, a very, very, very wonderful achievement.
In December 2018, Richard left university to come home to Edmonton in North London for the Christmas break. To help fund his studies, he'd found a holiday job in a bakery. His dad drove him to his first day's work on the 18th of December.
When I dropped Richard off to work about 6:30 that morning, he waved me by or something, and then that was how I left. That was the very last time I saw Richard.
That evening, Richard had finished his shift at the baker's and went to meet some old school friends. They headed to a house on St Joseph's Road to listen to music and catch up. At around 9 p.m, CCTV shows a black SUV-type vehicle in the area. It drove down St Joseph's Road towards the house where Richard and his friends were hanging out. The gunman aimed through the window. Richard was directly in the line of fire and caught the full blast of the shots. The gunman fled, leaving Richard laying critically injured on the floor. Despite the best efforts of his friends and the emergency services, Richard could not be saved. His dad was called to the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel.
I was expecting, myself, my wife, we were expecting to take us straight to where Richard was. Be an accident emergency. But then it soon became clear that Richard was not there.
Police believe Richard was in the wrong place at the wrong time and wasn't the intended target.
What has he done? He was innocent. He didn't know his killer.
Over 2 years on from his death, his family are still looking for answers.
Since Richard passed away, life never been the same for us. The smile's gone. Richard's been laid to rest. But you see, for me, for my family, we still relieve Richard's death every day.
Poor man. Well, joining us in the studio now is DCI Perry Benton, who's leading this investigation. Perry, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about the day that this awful, tragic event happened?
So it's Tuesday, the 18th of December, 2018. Richard was 20 years old. He was home visiting family from university. Richard was a good kid, never been in trouble with police. We know that about early in the evening, he went to visit some friends at an address in St Joseph's Road in Edmonton. About 9:15, he was in the room when a dark SUV has pulled up and 2 shots were fired from a shotgun into the address, fatally killing Richard at the scene.
Oh, it's just awful. Let's have a look at a map here, Perry. Can you just talk us through where this actually took place?
So this is St Joseph's Road, Edmonton. It's a very busy residential street. And there would have been lots of residents nearby that would have maybe seen, heard things. The community, I believe, may have information that I'm keen to try and find out today.
Well, you can see, as you say, it's such a residential area. There must be potential witnesses there that may well have seen or heard what happened, and we need to hear from those. So what do we know about the suspects at the moment?
So at the moment, I believe at least 2 individuals were involved. They were in a vehicle, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but I see at least 2 people were involved. But I'm keen for anyone for information to contact us as soon as possible.
Now, we're seeing some CCTV here, Perry. Now, this is being released for the first time. Talk us through what we're seeing here.
So this is a dark SUV, which I'm keen to identify. It's never been released before. It's a dark SUV. I believe it may be an Audi. And I'm keen to identify where that vehicle was on the day and even where that vehicle is now and who may have been in that vehicle on the day.
I'm going to play that clip again because it was quite brief, and as you say, it could be so important to the investigation. We've highlighted here the vehicle that you so desperately need information on, not only the vehicle, but who was inside.
Yeah, so this is Hertford Road, junction with Southbury Road, and this vehicle turns right. As I say, I'm desperate to identify who is in that vehicle and what that make and model of that vehicle is.
OK. Have you any idea why Richard was targeted?
So I believe that Richard wasn't the intended target. As I say, he was home from university visiting some friends in a maisonette, ground floor maisonette. I believe that maybe people in that address may have been the target, but I have to keep an open mind about who was responsible and why. And that's why I'm keen for anyone with information to contact us.
I have to say, attacks like this are very rare, though, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was a shooting of a 20-year-old boy who had his whole life ahead of him. So anyone who has information should contact us to help us get justice for Richard and his family.
And we saw from the film there just how much the family is suffering through all this.
Yeah, so I've met Richard's dad, and he's a remarkable man. The family have been devastated by this. Richard had his whole life ahead of him. I want to try and do everything I can to identify those responsible and get justice for Richard. I believe allegiances have changed and that will people out there that have information that are vital to an inquiry.
And as well as calling us here in the studio, you're happy for people to call you direct in your incident room as well?
Yeah, they can contact us direct in the incident room. I've got officers standing by, waiting to speak to anyone with any information. They can do so in confidence, and we will speak to anyone with any information.
OK, Perry, thank you. Well, do you know who was driving this car that night? As you saw in the film and just heard from Perry, this is agonising for Richard's family. 3 years on, and they still need to understand just why this has happened. If you can help, please pick up the phone now. You can, as you've just heard, call the Major Incident Room directly. I'll give you their number now. It's 0208 345 1570 to speak to police in confidence. You can call us. Our number here is 08000 468 999.